Hi, folks. Hi, Mildly. I was just finishing another live of yours. You said hi, thanks. So just wanted to let you know, obviously, I did not get my steps in. It's just morning. I did not do a live yesterday. I didn't get my steps in yesterday. I only got 8,122 steps yesterday. I was at a wedding, um, which was beautiful and cute. And we had karaoke, and I love me some karaoke. We had some karaoke at the tail end of that night, and I love me some karaoke. Basha said, "How's your mama doing?" Hello, Basha. So far so good. I mean, she was fine at the wedding as well. Um, I mean, it's interesting because she had the the coughing blood, um, like 3 days. I think it was 3 days ago, and I feel like she's had something to do every single day. She's just a busy person. Um, but she was talking about it with her friends. She was at the gym, and my mom's like consistently, like she's always consistently gone to the gym, and she was talking to her gym mates about what she experienced. And because she was like, she didn't think she had pneumonia because she didn't have all the symptoms, but it was like bacterial pneumonia or whatever. But her gym mate was like, "Yeah, my son just experienced that too. He didn't have a fever. He didn't have this. He didn't have that. But he just was ridiculously tired." And so she's like, "I think it's going around, whatever this is." So, hi, Confessions of a Jaded Optimist. Hey, Cammy, Danny. So I just wanted to um, read a conversation I had on TikTok with an individual around this whole Jed Wallace thing. Um, and so I'm going to read that. Basha said, older people have the busiest schedules. My parents retired and have never been so busy. 100%. Hey, Rachel. Hey, Echo. I love that Echo. August 8th is a Saturday. Oh, my word. It is the famous August 8th. August 8th. August 8th was a Tuesday, but today is Saturday. Okay. So, let me read the conversation I had with this person. So this person was basically saying that just because we support Justin Baldoni does not mean we should support Jed Wallace. And I just want to be clear. I don't know what Jed Wallace has done in other cases. I really don't. I can understand. I'm a pattern recognition person. And this person had done a deep dive very early on. He was probably the person that discovered all of those questionable websites around all of these other cases. That definitely, I was like, if Jed Wallace is some sort of like ridiculously smart person who does all of these sketchy things, why did he do a template websites for all of these cases? So I want to be clear, they haven't proven this is Jed Wallace, but they make a very good case against Jed Wallace, right? So what the person is saying is, just because you support Justin Baldoni doesn't mean you have to support Jed Wallace. And I'm like, I want to be clear about what I'm supporting Jed Wallace on. I don't think that Blake Lively should ever use 47.1 on a case where the person, she's never met this person, and she is, and he has never SH'd her. And 47.1 is about defamation around that specific accusation. You can't, she's trying to make her alleged retaliation, which is like how many degrees separated from the actual SH claims that she had against, whatever. And I get it, because she's kind of making his point for her, which is that her CRD made it look like she was accusing him of SH when she wasn't. And if she wasn't, then how is it falls under 47.1? You know what I mean? It makes no sense. So to me, it's not a question of whether I think Jed Wallace may have created these other questionable websites. He may have. There's good reasons why people believe so. I, I and I understand that. But that's not why I'm supporting Jed Wallace on this particular issue. And I do think we are able to differentiate between things. Hi, Mary. Hi, Kimberly. You said, I hope Mama Bocce can get a little rest this weekend. I mean, I don't know. My mom is a pretty go person, but I hope if she's tired, I hope she does take it. Hi, DeAndrea. You said thank you. Sometimes people miss the point. It really certainly feels like it, right? Okay. So I responded to this person. We are in support of him not being liable for 47.1. That's a heavy reach. As much as I respect your investigative work into those websites, you never uncovered anything with the case that Blake is trying to get money for. So I'm never gonna melt my support of what Jed is doing in this case with any case that may come up in the future. His response to me was, trying to segment this just doesn't work, in my opinion. And I responded, for you, for you. And that's fine. It's also the reason why I don't believe not believing Blake means that it is a loss for all women. It is for people who don't want to differentiate between cases. I get it. PR isn't about nuance. It's about winning the narrative. And then the person responded, the Justin Baldoni's community's biggest problem will always be finding ways to rationalize supporting bad characters. Not Justin himself, but people like Perez Hilton, people like Jed Wallace, is disliking Blake Lively to the point of self-immolation. I don't know how to say that word, immolation. And I said, what does that have to do with my comment? What does saying he shouldn't have to pay for 47.1 have to do with his alleged bad acts with these other websites? Let those be handled by the proper means instead of acting as if we know anything. I am more than willing to let the court systems do its thing for other cases. Now, I felt like he lost the plot the minute like he made the made the statement that the Justin Baldoni community's biggest problem will always be finding ways to rationalize supporting bad characters. He's like melding like so many things at once. So his thing is he says that Justin Baldoni supporters contort themselves. Okay. But I felt like this was a contorting. Like, I think I was pretty clear. I think I was pretty clear about what I'm supporting Jed Wallace on. I'm not co-signing Jack squat of anything else. It's not my fault if people cannot differentiate. You know what I'm saying? And I get it in PR, like people are not supposed to differentiate anything. Everything is just kind of like this narrative people feed, and you have to go with that narrative, and you don't want nuance in it. You know what I mean? And so I think, where is my, oh yeah. Okay. So then after this person said that, he said, do you believe that there are too many Indian people in Canada? This is a stance taken by a client of Jed's. Jed recently wrote a letter of support for this person. So I was like, what? Where did this come from? I said no, which has been the point of my answer since I commented. All of that is not being co-signed on just because I don't believe he should pay anything towards 47.1. It feels like a disingenuous tie-in that just because I believe that he shouldn't have to pay for 47.1. I think people are tired of scare tactics. It's the same scare tactics that people use to keep people from listening to Justin. They're like, if you even consider believing Justin, you're MAGA, your red pill is down the pipeline. It's a way to scare a person because people don't want to be associated with something. So instead of allowing themselves to look at the facts of the case, people just say, stop looking, or everyone will still think you agree with X, Y, and Z. Then his response is, there is no grand conspiracy. Justin has already largely, quote unquote, won his back and forth with Blake. Supporting Jed in any way at this point is a choice people can make or not. Unlike with Justin, there is a fairly good body of evidence pointing to Jed being a questionable character, to say the least. That's fine. And I'm going to respond to that. That's fine. And that will get litigated. Will get litigated then. And I will support what the evidence finds there. It doesn't change my stance on his current fight against 47.1 attorney's fees against himself, or even his appeal, or even his appeal, because I would like to. Okay, actually, sorry, I'm typing this response because he just responded right now. It doesn't change my stance on his current fight against 47.1 fees against attorney's fees. What else do I want to say? And we'll also see we'll see what happens with his appeals. What happens with his appeal for defamation. Okay, so my response is, that's fine. That will get litigated then, and I will support what the evidence finds there. It doesn't change my stance on his current fight against 47.1 attorney's fees. We'll see what happens with his appeal for defamation. I think it's just like, how did we get? How are you telling us that we're contorting ourselves, and then break out with, like, do you think there's too many Indian people in Canada because Jed Wallace signed a letter supporting a person who believes that? Like, what? That's way too off the beaten. Like, it's like when people bring up a completely, like, random, unrelated thing to be like a zinger. Like, but it doesn't make sense to bring it up right now. Like, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? And why would you ask me that question when you know me well enough to know the answer is no? Or maybe that's why you ask, because it's like, what? Trish, hi. Mary said, oh, so we're all lighting ourselves on fire now. Oh, that's right. If for those who don't know what self-immolation or whatever, let me see if I'm saying it horrendously wrong. Hold on. Oh, immolation. I totally was butchering it. Immolation. Immolation means to kill or offer as a sacrifice, especially by burning. So basically, he's saying that people dislike Blake so much to the point that they are self-sacrificing themselves over things. And I'm like, okay, even if you think this about other Justin Baldoni supporters, what does that have to do with the current conversation we were having? I thought it was very clear about what I'm actually supporting here. And I think this is something that, and I don't know where I said there's a conspiracy. His latest response says there is no great conspiracy. And I'm like, I didn't say there was a conspiracy. I'm saying that you bringing up, oh, do you, are you, then, you know, what do you, are you, what was the thing? about supporting like uh oh, like, do you agree or something with this thing, which feels like I said, feels like a very disingenuous question, has nothing to do with the topic at hand, you know. um but I was like, where did he get the idea that I'm saying there's a conspiracy? What I'm saying is, when people start saying at the time, where everybody from different political perspectives, right? When, like, whether you were uh, uh from the left to the right to the middle of the political spectrum, believe Justin Baldoni. But she latched on to this thing, and they did this with Justin, right? Asking him, you know, oh, what about this supporter, that supporter, blah, blah, blah. I mean, well, this specific, you know, uh, how did they put it? The red hat. I forgot how they phrased it, right? And so it was like, okay, so you're just trying to scare people. Like, you're trying to scare people from listening to Justin Baldoni because you know that people don't want to be associated. I mean, unless somebody was MAGA, you know what I mean? People don't want to be associated with MAGA. People don't want to be associated with Red Pill. People don't want to be associated with going down a particular pipeline. So then that just makes people afraid to even investigate, because it's like, oh, because this person, if they're thinking that I'm over here, over there politically, because I want to actually investigate where the evidence actually takes us. Where in our society are we now that we can't even look at evidence without people scaring us to not look at evidence? So maybe that's the quote unquote conspiracy he thought I was trying to say, like, oh, that I'm saying that he doesn't want us to look at this case specifically with Jed Wallace, by saying this Indian accusation, or not accusation, him saying that Jed Wallace wrote a support for a client who said something about there's too many Indian people in Canada. But what I was just saying is, it's so not the point of what we're looking at, that it just, and also, of course, like, why would somebody want to support someone who would support that? You know what I mean? So that's what I meant by that. I'm not saying there's a grand conspiracy, but it's an interesting thing when people offer up like it's not this, when you didn't think you were saying that, because then it makes me go, should I be thinking that? You know, it's kind of like when Blake Lively was like, I have no other motivation than for you to win as a director, as a writer, as a, you know, whatever. And I'm like, whenever somebody starts off with a statement like, I have no other motivation, you probably have another motivation. You know what I mean? But anyways, so let's look at more of the chats. Hi, JC1809XX. Blake Lively is lying, manipulative, narcissistic bully. That is all. Rachel said, I saw that conversation. I feel like people are still trying to divide Baldoni supporters. We don't know that Jed is a bad person, do we? What inside info does he have? Well, so he was the one who investigated the websites. He investigated and found things for Amanda Ghost, Aiden Ross, Alexander Brothers. He added RFK in here, but I can't remember if he found something with RFK specifically, but I know he found the Amanda Ghost website. I know he found the Alexander Brothers website. I think maybe even, what's her face? She was on Nickelodeon. She was at Nickelodeon. She used to be on Zoe 101. I think people know who this person is. If you knew Zoe 101 and this Nickelodeon star who has always been very vocal about being bullied on the show, and then use that as a platform in the to speak out against things like that. I can't remember her name, but I think he found a website for her as well. And when y'all see these websites, I'm like, why? They peddle Jed Wallace to be this like amazing, like you know, untraceable, like all this stuff. And these websites are so basic that is wild. So what he did was discover this, and then he looked at like back channel, not back channel, I don't know what, maybe it's back channel, backlinks, maybe it's backlinks, and they all came back to one person, which again to me is like, how smart of a untraceable person is this? If is that, I said to him, how, it's wild that you found this so easily. You know what I mean? I'm like, how good is Jed at his job? If some random person can just up and find these things. Like if it's not, I mean, he found it so easily, so quickly that I was like, then he's not good at his job. Jed Wallace would not be good at his job if he can't even, he would have websites that look exactly alike. And it's easy to just find this one thing that shows that it's this one person. So I'm like, this is real interesting. So that's why I'm like, and the fact that Jed Wallace is appealing this case, I'm like, I wonder, I'm looking forward to what evidence comes up. Now, mind you, I'm going to reread Jed Wallace, the deposition to you. And he's a squirmy one, which makes you think like, what are you hiding, dude? Like, why won't you answer anything? But mind you, it's also because you're taught to not answer certain things, especially depending on how things are put into question, right? Because their point is to kind of get an aha out of you. But so I don't know anything about whether Jed Wallace is a bad person or not. I know the accusations against him. I'm a pattern recognition person. So if those websites truly are Jed Wallace's websites, then yeah, it's real interesting. But they're very, very basic websites. And it boggles my mind that it was so easily found. And he's supposed to be some sort of like guru. But a person who doesn't even have a tech background was able to find it. How? And I remember when he first discovered this stuff, I was like, because I'm such a pattern recognition person, it was like it scratched an itch in my brain. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is really good. I really appreciated it. I appreciated the hard work. But it also made me question why in the world anybody would think Jed Wallace was this big, like whatever, if all he did was that. And I said, and how many people came to these websites? Because it seemed like it had low views, like who, and they didn't come up in search engine stuff. Or maybe they did. Maybe that was the whole purpose. It was to manipulate SEO. Maybe. I don't know. It was very interesting. But I think that's why he feels very strongly about it, was because he was the one that was able to find these websites, and investigate it in a lot of ways. So who knows? But that's the point. I don't know. So I'm not ready to indict a person. And I have not even seen the evidence truly. Now, some of the evidence is Jed Wallace's words against him. And yet at the same time, I'm like, because the whole thing with Amanda Ghost, if not true, that's really like messed up. You don't smear and create things that are not true about somebody. Now, unfortunately for Blake Lively, you know what I mean? She is who she is, and she was just discovered to be who she is. Sorry, I tossed that, and then I was like, why did I toss that? Okay. Miley said, just want to point out again that Perez did bad things 20 years ago and apologized and changed. Not to mention that no one deserves what happened. And that's an interesting point, Miley, because I knew of Perez. I don't know his complete history. But it is interesting that people who support Blake Lively, and I mean, this person has always claimed to be neutral around this whole Blake versus Justin thing, but the overwhelming majority of the things that he has always posted has been pro Blake in its slant. But he's always said that he's neutral, right? But it is an interesting thing, and the only reason I bring that up is it's an interesting thing that I have found with Blake Lively supporters who say, why bring up things that happened I mean, like what she did 20 years ago, and have no qualms bringing up things that other people did 20 years ago where they actually may have apologized and changed. Now, I don't know. Again, I'm not here. I don't have any emotional ties to knowing all that stuff, but it's interesting to see who they're willing to accept some sort of like excuse for things that they did 20 years ago versus who they don't. You know what I mean? Um and to me, like I always said, the things that was brought up against Blake Lively in old interviews, the only reason that it affected her negatively is because it reasserted that she is still the same person as she is now. And I don't think the things that people did in the past, if they've changed as a person, has the same effect. Now, maybe in people's eyes, it still has the same effect because of X, Y, and Z. So I don't know, because wasn't a consumer of Perez Hilton stuff back then. I heard he was horrible to a lot of stars back then. And um so that's all I know. At the same time, even if is that true in my head? Um I will say that, like, I I don't know. I just didn't think what happened is something that I should view, or people should view, or be okay with, or revel in, or rejoice in that happened. You know what I mean? I don't understand that kind of mentality. Um so yeah. Rachel said, I'm not willing to label people bad based on Blake supporters. And that's the thing, right? Again, he would probably fight on the idea that he's a Blake supporter. He again always claims that he's neutral, but I think a lot of people who consume what he says would beg to differ. But I'm sure he feels like he's not a Blake supporter. He feels like he's neutral. But I've heard people use that phrase, but I'm like, if I can count 99% of, well, I mean, maybe that's a hyperbole, or is it really? I don't know if it's a hyperbole. I'll give him 98%. If 98% of his stuff is has a pro Blake slant, I'm gonna feel like the person's a Blake supporter. But with that said, I think he feels like he's being neutral because he feels like he's coming from it from the perspective of his expertise. Mary said, Bocce, were you arguing with Ryan on the tickety talks again? No. JC 1809XX says Wallace wants to depose Lively. A magistrate is now deciding this. Rachel said, my real question is, what does that post have to do with PR? Valid point. I guess that one didn't have anything to do with PR. I guess that was just his personal take. Because what does that have to do with PR? Unless, yeah, what does that have to do with PR? I don't know, Rachel. I don't think it has. I think it was just his personal take. Hi, Umami. Oopsie. DeAndrea said, wow, what don't they understand? Blake accused someone she never met of SH. He thinks Jed should pay that simply because he's done things in his career, other things in his career. Odd perspective. Hi, Elsie. Rachel says, what bothered me most about this case are people claiming a natural stance while clearly not having. Oh, I mean, you probably mean a neutral. I mean, it may feel like a natural stance for them too. But yeah. Yeah, a part of me goes, I think I there's two people I can think of that has claimed neutrality, but people have felt like are pro Blake. Um, and for me, he's always leaned more pro Blake in his assessment of things. Whereas the other person that other people have claimed is pro Blake because of her content, I have never felt like her content ends up being more pro Blake at times. But I think that shows her homework more, I guess is what I will say, so that I understand that it's just the way her brain works. Um, but I mean, I think I have to understand too, like if somebody comes from a particular expertise in their field, maybe Blake was always better at PR per se than it but traditional PR. You know what I mean? I think Blake was winning many times in the media. It's just she couldn't win with the people. Of course, she had people supporting her, but I mean, overall. Miley said every quote unquote conspiracy theory we've had come true. Their conspiracies haven't. I didn't even know there were conspiracy theories. What conspiracy theories have come true for us and theirs haven't? I genuinely, I guess I just didn't know there were conspiracy theories going around. DeAndrea 5724 said he sounds like Gottlieb interrogating Justin. Yeah, there were times. It kind of reminds me of like that update line of questioning from Gottlieb. Are you a sponsor of Update? Like, dude, if you can't tell the difference between being a sponsor for a non-alcoholic energy drink when it comes to promoting It Ends With Us, like I don't know what to tell you. Hi, Isis email 2488. Hi, Gron. Mary said RFK wanted Jed to create a website for him for political reasons, I think. Oh, did he do it? Because I heard that he did. I see. This is why I don't know. Hi. Okay, actually, so Miley said it's Alexa Nicholas. That's right. I believe he found something with that too. Hi, Cora Lil One. You said I swear people want the law to apply to only the ones they like. It's okay to support Wallace in the 47.1 because it shouldn't apply to him. Miley said Brian Friedman also had his own smear website, FYI. Yes, I actually did see that smear website that was done on Brian Friedman. I wish I could recall where it was. But I do recall seeing that one. And the thing is, I found things that kind of resembles the things that this person found for websites that existed way early and usually against lawyers, interestingly enough. Cora Lil once said, don't you find it strange that he was able to find the websites when no one else did? Not necessarily. I think he's an inquisitive person like I am. And I think he also likes mysteries and going down the rabbit hole of things. What I found more strange is that anybody would count Jed Wallace as some big, like untraceable, whatever, and not be able to and have a regular Joe Schmo person be able to find it very quickly. That I found really interesting. Um, I will say though, he tried very hard to find something on Blake Lively, a website or anything, any SEO kind of stuff against Blake Lively, couldn't find anything and didn't find anything, and said so. So I think his take was always like, he actually doesn't think that Justin did anything. That's why he says you can support Justin and not support Jed Wallace. ISIS email 2488 said Jed Wallace is no James Bond. Mary said reports from outlets like the New York Times detailed that RFK Jr. sought advice from Wallace during his political transition and pursuit of a federal cabinet position. I mean, who's the person that he claims wrote said something about there are too many Indians in Canada, and he wrote a letter of support for that person? Does anybody know who that is? Mary said Bocce should deep dive Alexa. It's strange and interesting and sad. Rachel said, I get that, Bocce, but he has a job to do. Do we know if what he does is defense or offense? I guess my point is we don't know what the ins and outs are of Hollywood. Yeah, I don't know. ISIS email 2488 said Jed Wallace is all smoke and mirrors. Rachel said, how many times did we see things that Baldoni supposedly did and it was Blake's PR? I mean, Mary said, yeah. Mary said, according to Britt, Jed does a lot in the industry and Hollywood is big mad that Blake exposed the behind the scenes. I mean, think about the fact that he was working with, I think, Paramount, with that one guy, the Bam something, somebody with the name Bam. But mind you, at that time, it was supposed to be like he was providing, I don't know if it was counseling or something or other. I forgot what, like recovery program or something. And they were saying he was unqualified to be doing that. So I don't know all of that stuff, but I feel like there's something there over on that side too. Miley said Alexa is gunning for Friedman because he was her abusive ex-lawyer, but also it's his job to lawyer. No? Yeah, it is. ISIS email 2488 said his lawyer Babcock is a wizard with words. Mary says, I'm not going to lie. I'm holding that 20-year grudge on Perez, and maybe I shouldn't, but I haven't looked at anything of his since the late 2000s, and I don't intend to. And I hear everyone saying he's apologized and made amends, but I still don't want to support his socials. But I absolutely support him getting the help he needs because nobody should have to go through that. ISIS email 2488 said Blake never apologizes. The Ford, I think you meant Forbes, probably. The Forbes magazine interview about taking over movies is very relevant. And also that wasn't 20 years ago. That was literally like a few months before she signed on to be on It Ends With Us. To be fair to Blake Lively, though, she did communicate she wanted to be a producer in this movie. And to be fair to Blake, even though they repeatedly said no, at the end, Jamie said something to the effect of, well, we can revisit it if she proves that she proves herself, or I forgot what. So who knows if that line from Jamie always was like, ugh. Like, it should have just been a hard no. But I think it just should have been a hard no, I think. I'm trying to remember where I read that email or text message or something, and I was just like, no. Miley said, I don't think you have to forgive his behavior to have empathy for his or his family's current situation. What happened was horrific, and no one deserves that. Mary said, I was a check his website every hour or more kind of person. I was obsessive. I was so entangled in gossip websites. I could recite articles and tear down anyone in Hollywood based on gossip. Cora Lil says he's friends with, I don't want to say that content creator's name either. That should tell you everything. I don't think it tells me everything. I think he's actually put out some videos that were negative towards that other content creator. And I think that other content creator started following him after that. But I'm not fully sure. So I don't necessarily, sometimes people follow other people just to follow what they're saying. I'm the opposite. If I don't like you, I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to let you follow me. Well, unless I can't stop you from following me. You know what I mean? Um, but I don't think that means tells me everything. Um, because I don't think they're friends like that. But who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know him. He doesn't know me. But I feel like I've interacted with him enough that I feel like, as much as we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, I do respect him and I do care about him as a person. And I do like him as a person. Um, and and part of the reason I have refrained from saying what his name is because like I don't want people to like to be hard on him. And I feel like he thinks that because of those that follow me and where I stand on this issue, that I guess I just don't want him piled on piled on. And sometimes if I communicate my thoughts on something he's offering publicly, and then because I share my thoughts publicly about it, people who agree with me might say things to him, then he gets overwhelmed. And somehow it's not my fault, but it ends up feeling like my fault. You know what I mean? Or it gets put on me like it's my fault a little bit. Sometimes I feel. So I try to refrain from it, from communicating that, but I want to at least still talk about it, because why can't I talk about it if somebody says it publicly? Why can't I share my opinions on that and my thoughts on that without feeling like I feel like those who follow me know that I don't like people being piled on. I don't like I don't want people to whatever. So but I guess I think there's still a part of me that gets bothered at the idea that anyone would think that me communicating my thoughts about things that people say publicly is an automatic, like, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to refrain from sharing exactly what I feel about that frustration of like, okay, so and so can say something publicly, but if I comment on the thing that they say publicly, that somehow I'm the bad person, because then people come and respond to that on a conversation that a person starts. Like, but anyways, okay. Because I think everybody's grown. Everybody's an adult. Everybody makes their own decisions of how they interact with information. But with that said, I'm very, very, I feel like people who support me should know where I stand about how people should engage with people that they disagree with. But I can't control other people. Anyways, but so the only thing I can control is the limitation on what information. Oh, Susan, your gift just showed up on my screen. That's cute. I'll properly thank you once I get to that portion of the chat. But anyways, okay, I need to let that that thing go in my head, because I tend to be a very sensitive person. So if somebody ever thinks that I'm trying to make people like say negative things to somebody, when that is not my heart whatsoever, but I'm trying very hard to always stay to the topic at hand, anyways. DeAndrea said, I feel you can only be neutral if you simply didn't follow the case. Hi, Andy Embel, 123. Mary said, we all got to pause and watch. We can catch up. LOL. I'm 16 minutes behind at this point. Rachel said exactly, which goes against the whole my posts are PR based when in fact they are always pro Blake. I mean, yeah, I think he tended to always see her stuff positively because I think he might he might be he might still have like not old school PR stuff. Obviously, I think he's up to date enough that he's not old school only. But I think that his mindset was more so who's winning the PR wars when it comes to like the media. And for us, we are not moved by the media in the same way as we used to be. Um at the same time, like I don't want to disregard every media simply because of how much this left a bad taste in my mouth. I have to remind myself that disregarding every piece of media now because of this situation is me then having a bias against the media and assuming all media is bad, and that's not necessarily true. We can find media that does its due diligence, and I think being able to figure that out will help us to not make a blanket statement about the media like I have been ever since this case happened. um I have to remind myself that that doesn't that I have to take things for what it is at the moment, and not put all my trauma of other things on everything. But I do look at things more with a critical eye, and I have to remind myself having a critical eye doesn't mean dismissing everything as completely wrong and false, but having a critical eye is truly looking at the article for what it is. Mary says, "You know what I keep thinking? I wonder if Blake tried to hire Jed, but he was already on Freeman's side, so she tried to go scorched earth on his reputation instead." I don't think she knew who Jed Wallace what. Well, I don't know. Miley said conspiracies, Taylor, movie takeover, the entire depth of the web of this thing. Everything we suspected was accurate, most at least. Okay. I mean, I don't know if it was a conspiracy to believe about the movie takeover or about the movie takeover, because that one is literally what the lawsuit was about against her, was that she did this movie takeover. Um Taylor. Yeah, Taylor was definitely more. I mean, I know that folks disagree with me about her being more involved, but I do think she downplayed her how much she was engaged in this whole thing. And I don't feel like a person who downplays it instead of owning it is someone who doesn't think that they have something to hide. Like why what's the point, you know? Mary, I just got to your like green message here. Said so good to see you smiling and laughing, hugging culture. Coralil says the actress Ruby Rose posted the link to the Friedman website, but also said she didn't make it. Okay. Oh, Mary, thank you for the 5 Bocce Go Hawks gift memberships that you gave. It went to Michelle, two Sues, um, Sue Nichols and Sue Adams. Um, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna butcher this name. Um, INGE Ingy Hay Nink 1798. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering tremendously. And then Domesticated Butt Cheeks is another person who got a gift membership. Um, so thank you for that. I, in my opinion, with love. Mm. Miley said, I've been begging Brett and Sarah to cover the Paramount merger. Umami said, Bam Margera or something. Yeah. Rachel also said, Bam Bam. And yeah, because I recall reading a little bit about that. That one wasn't about, that wasn't, that one had nothing to do with retaliation or websites. That one had to do with him being a recovery, serving as a recovery person or something or other. Miley says there's a documentary you should watch called The Curious Case of Bam Margera. Thank you, Oslo Time, for the flower for 30 jewels. And hello. Mary said the phrase too many Indians in Canada belongs exclusively to a viral video from October 2024 where an unidentified woman hurled an unprovoked xenophobic tirade at Ashwin Annamalai on a sidewalk in Waterloo, Canada. Can't find any connection with Jed Wallace. Okay, interesting, because he had said that somebody who is a client of Jed Wallace, which again, how does he know who the client is? Unless this was one of the things that made public that he was a client to Jed. But it was a client to Jed that said there were too many Indians in Canada. I don't know who that is, though. Rachel said, what's the difference between Perez and what they're doing to Patrick Clancy? You're either reporting with integrity or not reporting on facts or opinions that can hurt people. Yeah, I have not done a dive at all around that Clancy thing. I've been hearing perspectives from all sides of the case and around that one. That it does seem very interesting just because of all the conversations people are having. Kimberly said, is Perez not worthy of grace? Miley said, I think everyone is worthy of grace, especially if they apologize and grow. Oh, Susan G, thank you for the trophy cake for 1,000 jewels. That was a really cute one. It popped out and then it got cut into, like, you see that it's a cake inside, which was fun. Mary said, according to the Googles, RFK Jr. has been involved with Native American causes because he's linked with Jed, the algorithms conflate them with a viral quote, but it has nothing to do with Jed. That's wild. Really interesting. So they found a way to conflate some random comment to RFK Jr. Interesting. I would think that he would have done his due diligence and not assume that that was a quote. So if it wasn't a quote, so I would have to. But you think he was thinking it was RFK Jr. that said it. Interesting. I mean, again, I don't know because I haven't done any research myself on it. I just was wondering where that came from because it came from left field. For me, I was like, what does this have to do with this conversation? Elsie said, I looked it up. I can't get gift memberships on YouTube because I have a brand new account. Brand account. Oh, you have a brand account. Oh. Hi, Crafty Linda. I'm glad you were able to catch a live. Yeah. Rachel said, you report with integrity and facts. You gave Blake so much grace. A lot of content creators don't care that what they are reporting on can be harmful, which is not different than Perez, but judge him. Suki said, hi, y'all. Yay, live. I'm doing yard work. Gonna be... Cancel. This is... I almost accidentally marked somebody. I hate it when I'm scrolling and I accidentally... Yeah, gonna be at 100 today. You're doing yard work in 100-degree heat. That would not be me. I would be dying. But hi, Suki. I am like an upper. If the height of my heat allowance is like, if it was like upper 70s, lower 80s, and I'm under a tree. I guess I could handle higher heat if there's just a whole lot of wind as well. Miley said there are good journalists who want to report the truth. You just have to weed them out from the bad actors, you know? Linda said, Blake's case taught me how media and PR works. Now I have to think, why is this article written? What is the spin? I mean, it definitely made me realize that that money wins out many times when it comes to like what gets printed. Miley said, Team Blake told us we were conspiracy theories for what we saw happening in the filings over and over again. We were accused. Oops. Where did things go? Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says that surprise witness covers Jed. All right. I had to leave and come back in. And I always wonder what triggers something. So Elsie says, Bam just makes me think of the Lego case. Yeah, I have not watched that one. I mean, I know that DFJ has done a lot. I think that's been a lot of the content the DFJ has been doing. Molly said that surprise witness is in the BAM documentary I mentioned. Oh. Huh. Interesting. Echo said, I remember hearing bad things about Perez. I decided to watch a lot of his lives to decide for myself if he was still that person. He seemed so broken when he talked about how sorry he was. I do believe he regrets those things. Miley said, agreed, Echo. He really does feel guilty for the things he did in his 20s. Hi, Lily. OTV2 said, why would you think Perez is pro Blake? She sued him and stressed him out for months. I do not believe Perez is pro Blake. I'm not quite sure if was there something I said that made you believe that I thought that Perez was pro Blake? There was a person I was speaking about that I did not give the name of that was discussing things, but it was not Perez. Go Landvern. Hello. You said things people did in the past. Hasn't Ryan actually bragged about burning down his elementary school, but they still support him? An alleged arsonist. Crazy times. You know, what I think that they would do is just chalk it up to him just joking around, not being serious, even though I think he was being serious. Coralil once said, no. Oh, wait a minute. Echo says no sound. Are you saying no sound? Do I have no sound right now, Echo? Coralil once said, Bocce, can you make a video on how Jed was included in Blake's CRD complaint? Could you expound what you mean? I remember doing a short on it when it first happened where I was like, oh my word, interesting that this person does not get sued, even though she put that Jed's name in the CRD. But the way that things were written out in the CRD, they lump everybody together. So you don't know what they're getting accused of unless you read the lawsuit, obviously. And so if you read the lawsuit, you're like, well, how does this fall under 47.1? It shouldn't. Hello, Mishy Poo. DeAndrea 5724 said, it's back now. I had to leave and come back in. So did I. So did I, DeAndrea. I had to leave and come back in. Umami said, I don't understand what they want Perez to do. The cruelty has been shocking, and I'm so sick to my heart that people sat in that live with him, taking the piss out of him. I am so thankful that I'm wholly unaware of what people are saying. I heard that it's on Reddit. I'm not there for a reason, not just not because of Perez, but my own reasons, because I don't want to. Sometimes you don't want to hurt your own feelings. You know what I mean? Elsie says DFJ has great coverage of the Lego case. I mean, it sounds like it. Again, I haven't watched anything or I haven't followed that case whatsoever, but I always see when DFJ posts about it, and I know that DFJ would do a great job on that. Seeing how DFJ handled the Blake Lively case. Miley said, I haven't seen the video and I'm all over Reddit, but the commentary around the video is disgusting. I always think to myself that I want the same grace that I give others. Like, you receive the same grace that you give others. Maybe not always, but I don't know. And that's why I think even in this whole journey with the Blake Lively versus Wayfair case, like there were so many moments where I was giving Blake Lively a chance. I mean, she had me the first few days, even in the first few days reading her lawsuit, some red flags already rose up in my head as I read it, but I still felt like Blake could have believed the things she was making accusations of. But the further I went along and the more evidence that we saw, the more I was like, I think she always knew that it wasn't true. Like, before, I thought, like, maybe this is a perspective thing. But the longer we were in there, the more things we got to read. I'm like, now I'm in a place where I don't even know if I believe that. I think she knew from the get-go she was not being wholly truthful. So, anyways. Coralil said, I have enough compassion for Perez, even if he had said terrible things in the past. No one should be encouraging what he did. Are people encouraging that? Is that what's happening on Reddit? Because that's wild. Okay. So one of the things is people. This is Jed adjacent, right? I want to read an article that was written about Matthew Hiltzig. And Matthew Hiltzig is the PR company that worked with Johnny Depp. And he was the lead on that account along with Carolina Hurley. But when the Blake Lively versus Wayfair case came to be, actually, like when that was all happening, that was the first time in all of like the internet that we see Melissa Nathan be attached to Johnny Depp because they were trying to push out a particular narrative around it, right? But we never heard Melissa Nathan with Johnny Depp. I mean, in regards to Johnny Depp before the Blake Lively versus Wayfair. It was either Matthew Hiltzig or Carolina Hurley. Now, Carolina Hurley did leave the Hiltzig strategies to go with Melissa Nathan. So, and obviously because of that, I think Depp went with the company, maybe, because you usually stay with whoever your main PR person was. But anyways, there's this article on Hiltzig, and it talks about Melissa Nathan. And this is what it says. And the article is called The PR Fixer Who Launched Hope Hicks and Doesn't, and it cuts. Actually, let me go down here. Oh, no. The Crisis King Who Builds Careers Inside Matthew Hiltzig's Paradoxical Empire. And so there's a portion here. It says, even messy departures don't sour relationships. Melissa Nathan spent 10 years at Hiltzig Strategies before leaving in 2023 to found the agency group, taking staff, Drake, and the Chainsmokers with her. It's the kind of move that typically breeds permanent bad blood. Within months, Nathan's new venture hit turbulence. She was hired by Justin Baldoni in 2024 during the promotional period for It Ends With Us, which he directed and co-starred in with Blake Lively. When Lively filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Baldoni in December, alleging a retaliatory smear campaign, Nathan was named in the suit. Alleged text messages surfaced, including one where Nathan purportedly told Baldoni, "You know, we can bury anyone." Okay, Nathan didn't say that to Baldoni, though. She said that to Jen Abel. Hey, Carol. Hi. Nathan was named in another lawsuit last month, this one filed by the target of a similar smear campaign the publicist allegedly orchestrated on behalf of Rebel Wilson. Hiltzik could have piled on. The setup was perfect. Former protege takes clients, gets embroiled in allegations of fabricating defamatory websites and deploying bot armies to destroy reputations. Instead, when asked about Nathan taking Drake, who recently returned to Hiltzik on a project basis, she earned that client. When asked about her alleged tactics, that's not how we do things. No elaboration beyond, we create an environment where everyone understands our values. Brianna Butler, who left Hiltzik Strategies with Nathan, says the biggest lesson she learned, there was commitment to truth, even when the facts may be less than favorable. Nathan still calls Hiltzik family and credits him with teaching her that every story has many sides. So that's that article. I just wanted to read that for a brief moment. And then I wanted to read the Rebel Wilson smear campaign one. This lawsuit is still happening. The one she won was in Australia against oh, I forget what her name is now off the top of my head. The actor of the movie. She had accused her of defamation. The judge was amazing. And the judge basically said, I don't trust any of y'all's, but Rebel Wilson out of all of y'all's are the closest ones to telling the truth here, even if Rebel doesn't have the greatest reputation herself. But this particular lawsuit is still alive and well in America and is with Amanda Ghost. And so leaked audio reveals Rebel Wilson's PR team plotted to smear movie producer as sex trafficker. Amid an escalating legal feud between Wilson and the film's producer Amanda Ghost, more evidence is emerging of PR firm the agency group's connection to anonymous attack websites. So behind closed doors, Rebel Wilson's crisis public relations team discussed plans to create anonymous websites that accuse the producer of the Deb of sex trafficking as part of an alleged smear campaign solicited by the actress. In a recording obtained by The Hollywood Reporter, digital fixer Jed Wallace instructed top entertainment publicist Melissa Nathan to assert without evidence that the producer Amanda Ghost is a madam whose work involves procuring young women for wealthy and powerful men. And so this is the voice message that they found.
Oh, also talked about Rebel. Like, here's the deal with Rebel, and I think you, me, and Brian, and maybe Katie, since she'll write this thing. What we have to do is the biggest piece here is that we have to connect Amanda Ghost with Vlotnik. And I was just like, so basically what we need to do is we need to create a path where we expose Amanda Ghost as like the new Heidi Fleiss. Like she masquerades as the reason why she sucks so bad at music is because she's actually getting hookers for Vlotnik, right? And that's what she does. She's an absolute madam, and that's why she's so lethal, blah, blah, blah. But he's right. Like, we can't just do like, oh, she's a bitch, she sucks. It's like, it's got to be really, really heavy and connected to something that heavy. So we'll talk about that tomorrow too.
Okay. So that is not great for Jed Wallace. Miley said, have your feelings on the Ghost Wilson thing changed since she was found innocent, Bocce? No. I mean, I think that the judge laid it out very clearly. Like, the judge spoke to my heart. That Australian judge kicked butt. Okay. It wasn't because Rebel was like, I don't know if I think Rebel did that out of the goodness of her heart. Necessarily. I do think that there were a lot of different factors that is the reason for the Amanda Ghost lawsuit. I think Charlotte was foolish in suing her for defamation, because I do think that Rebel had enough evidence to show that she did say something. I mean, they had a smoking gun email that showed that Charlotte McInnes had walked back what she had told Rebel, and that Charlotte hasn't had a consistent story. And the more contemporaneous text messages or contemporaneous communication lined up with what Rebel Wilson said happened. And that Charlotte McInnes and Amanda Ghost's like statements don't match. So the reason Rebel Wilson won on that case was because the evidence was just there for her, not because she was more credible. Because as the judge said, I mean, she doesn't have the best reputation either. Rebel Wilson does not. And I definitely think that when I saw her on 60 Minutes, especially when she talked about this thing, and she claimed that she never asked for anything, and like they did all that, that's not true, Rebel. There's text messages talking about how you asked for a particular thing. I think she promoted this link of this website, right? So if the way that I listen, when I hear what Jed is saying here, it doesn't sound like they have proof of any of these things. It sounds like they are just making up something. And that is not good. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says that sounds pretty bad. It was. I mean, I think it sounds bad. Umami said that judge was fair. I'd have loved her over Lyman. I loved her. What an amazing judge. And so I just wish that Lyman had enough backbone to do exactly what that judge did and just called it out for what it was. Miley said, no one says Jed's a good person. We just think he has an awesome lawyer and he was wronged by Blyan. I will say that I do love me some Charles Babcock. He's like amazing, an amazing lawyer. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says Rebel was self-interested and should not have put SA on blast on Instagram. She was in a position of trust and she violated it. So the law or not, I can't get with that. Miley said, I'm behind on your content. I'll catch up on the Rebel Live when I'm done here. I will say that Carol said, OMG, I can't listen to that Ella song without thinking of Charles Babcock. I don't know what the Ella song is. What's the Ella song? Pam said, hey everyone, very late but sped through to get the general idea of what the live is about. Hey Pam. So I will say that, this does not look good for Jed Wallace. This does not look good for Katie. This does not look good for Melissa. And I will say there's a text message that talks about how Katie needs to pull it from the thing that Carolina had put together. So it doesn't look good for Carolina. Okay. So to me, this is a separate case. And this is going to be very revealing in regards to Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan and whatnot, right? But to me, that does, we're going to look at all of the things that came up for Jed Wallace that just don't look good for Jed Wallace. But with that said, that doesn't change anything of my stance around 47.1. I do not think 47.1 and pursuing attorneys' fees and punitive and treble damages makes any sense for him. That is about making a protected activity. 47.1 is about someone engaging in protected activity and gets retaliated by getting a defamation lawsuit put on them and getting to recoup the fees on that. So is she saying she sued him for SH? Well, that's the thing. They made people think that, right? The way that the CRD was written, but she never did. So how in the world does it fall under 47.1? I think that's the main thing that people are fighting around. Like, why should he pay 47.1 stuff when this is such an overreach of what that particular statute is supposed to do or whatever. And I don't know if is the right word statute. I don't know. Carol said, where he said Lively choosing Texas, we can tell. And then he said, it doesn't take a crystal ball to see Lively should be dismissed. Okay, so I don't know that song. So it still goes over my head. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says these people have a menu of options that they can choose from, and Wayfarer chose the salad course. They paid for the bare minimum. Also, did he know about the SH claims? Yes, I would say he did. No. I mean, yes and no. He knew about the 17-point side agreement because I believe it was either Melissa or Katie. I think it was Melissa that gave it to Jed. Oh, no. Hold on. Let me think about that. Did Jed? Maybe not. Hold on. Maybe I'm confusing it to when it was given to Melissa. No? I feel like it was Melissa giving it over and saying, this is the I won't return to work document or whatever. Okay, Carol said yes, Melissa Nathan gave it to Jed. That's what I recall. Okay, so on the Rebel Wilson case, I don't think it looks good for Jed and Melissa and Katie and Carolina, especially if they were making making up stories that are not true. Now, if it turns out that this was true, if it turns out that it was true, that's different. But there's no proof that it is true. And that is defamation. That is not a good thing. At one point in the private conversation, Wallace references the involvement of Hollywood power lawyer Brian Friedman, Wilson's then counsel, in the plan. The discovery of communications implicating Wallace, Nathan, and Friedman can be traced back to the It Ends With Us legal saga, in which Friedman plays a central role in a breach of contract lawsuit from ex-Baldoni's publicist Stephanie Jones against Baldoni and his production company Wayfarer. The recording bolsters the appearance that Nathan's the agency group, a top PR shop in the entertainment industry, whose clients have included Drake and Johnny Depp, and has frequently worked with Friedman, deployed websites featuring character assassinating claims about ghosts. The conversation was originally recorded in order to relay instructions from Wallace to former TAG Vice President Katie Case, who was not on the call. She was told to review a document detailing accusations of the site ultimately alleged against the producer. Carol said Katie sent it to Melissa and Melissa sent it to Jed the same way with the same text. Okay, so that's why I think I was like, it was getting foggy in my head. Thank you, Carol. Ekala said, I'm 33 minutes behind. Bocce, he's making that video and commenting knowing people are going to engage in it. He wants it to get attention. Don't feel responsible for others also giving their opinion. Thanks, Ekala. I mean, I refrain. I mean, ever since there, you know, yeah, I know it's not on me, but like, I think I still have residuals of like, of a conversation a long time ago. And I was like, and after that conversation, I was like, I will never stitch you again. I will never comment again, you know, because it was just, because I think it just stayed with me. This like kind of like feeling of like, oh, because I said something, now it's my fault, you know, kind of situation. But I know that I have a right to my opinions and I have a right to communicate that. And my intention is never dogpiling on someone. And I don't want anyone to ever dogpile on someone. But it's like, why do I have to be silent with my opinions if somebody else communicates their opinion? You know what I mean? Hopefully any of my commentary has always been around the topic at hand and not any personal attacks on somebody. I think what I don't like is when people personally attack somebody instead of staying on topic, right? But yeah. I've removed that. I've removed that, Carol. But the answer is yes. But I've removed that because I've refrained from saying the name here. So, but yes. Carol said seems nice, but not aligned with his content. Yeah. I mean, I do believe he's nice. And I do think he's very like, I do think he has like a very sensitive spirit. You know what I mean? I have a sensitive spirit. So I think that's why, like, that feeling of like having it be put upon me, that somehow is on me. I know it was all worked out in the end and we're okay, but it still lingers with me, I think, sometimes. Also, he owes you money. Oh my word. That's a throwback. That was a throwback. Oh my word, y'all! I gotta play you this song that I wrote. Oh no, Mary, you gashed your finger open. Oh my word. Uh-oh. I'm just gonna play you a little snippet of this song that I wrote it's a joke song, okay? I forgot what it was called. Like, was it $1,000? Yeah, it's called 1,000. Y'all, it's such a funny joke. Oh wait, I realized I say his name on this song. Well, not his full name. So never mind. I'm not going to. I'm not going to play it after all. But I will tell you what I said. In the chorus, I said, "You want my Venmo or my Zelle? January 3, I will be $1,000 richer. Book me a room in a fancy hotel. Save me a seat in the front row of this trial on my birthday. Yeah, happy birthday to me." Now, obviously, a lot of things changed because the original trial was supposed to be March 9, which is my birthday. Then it got moved to May but then obviously they did settle. And the original bet was that it wasn't going to go to trial, but specifically it wasn't that he thought it was going to be over by January 2. So that's why I said, well, by January 3, I'm going to be $1,000 richer. Carol said, no, be like lively and bring it up always and with everyone, including that he owes you money. LOL. Pam said he didn't ever pay hard. I mean, did I ever really believe that anybody was going to actually pay? Like, it was a playful bet. It was a playful bet. But I knew that it wasn't going to be over by January 2. No way. Okay, good. I'm glad that it's just a shallow cut there, Mary. All right. So what else about this Rebel Wilson smear campaign? Camp Sugar, Wilson's production company, is named as an author of that document, according to court filings. Rebel Wilson has repeatedly denied any involvement in the creation of the smear websites, not just on television, but in her sworn legal testimony, said Camille Vasquez, a lawyer for Ghost, in a statement. We, however, had long suspected that she not only contributed to the malicious sites, but that she was the driving force behind them. The evidence we have submitted to the court in California supports that conclusion. In a statement, Allison Thompson, a lawyer for the actress, said Friedman no longer represents Ms. Wilson and hasn't for some time, she added. In a deposition, Ms. Case also confirmed that she never personally spoke with Ms. Wilson. Friedman, Nathan, and Wallace declined to comment. Friedman has previously said that neither he nor Nathan and Wallace were involved in the sites. I have a hard time. I hate denials like that, because to me, there's evidence to. I mean, I don't. There's evidence that there's involvement. I don't like that. No. See, I will always follow where the evidence takes me, and I'm not comfortable with that statement. I'm just not, because what are we listening to then? This is pretty on point with what ends up being on that smear campaign, like website. On that smear website. So, I don't know about that. According to court filings, in an August 2024 exchange naming Friedman and Wallace, Nathan discusses plans with Case to implement a digital campaign targeting Ghost, who was then engaged in one of those sites, Nathan texts. Okay. It paused again right when I read that. So let me try again. Let's see if it pauses again. So basically, Rebel wants one of those sites, Nathan texts. It can be really hard, and then link it to the, and then of Jed's voice thing. Later, she messages Case, Jed and Brian asking me for copy. LOL, kill me. That copy, allegedly drafted by Camp Sugar, was revised to conform with Wallace's instruction, Case said in a deposition. In the recording, the digital strategist tells Nathan to claim that Ghost provides billionaire Len Blavatnik, owner of Ghost production company AI Film, with sex workers. So basically what we need to do is we need to create a path where we expose Amanda Ghost. Wallace says Amanda Ghost is like the new Heidi Fleiss, like she masquerades as the reason why she sucks so bad at music is because she's actually getting hookers for Blavatnik, right? And that's what she does. Ghost is best known as a music executive, including her brief, tumultuous tenure atop Epic Records. He has, I think, you, me, and Brian, and maybe Katie, since she'll write this thing. What we have to do is connect Amanda Ghost with Blavatnik. Oh, can't. The now deleted site titled, can I, wait a minute. I think you, me, and Brian, maybe Katie, since you'll write this thing. I gotta re-listen to that. Okay. The now deleted site titled Amanda Goes as a Destroyer of Worlds represents itself as being written by a whistleblower. It stated in part, falling in music, she turned full pimp, reinventing herself as a theatrical producer alongside her husband while really procuring young women for the pleasure of the extremely wealthy. A comparison of the document Camp Sugar allegedly sent to Tag shows identical language, including a phrase that refers to ghosts as the Indian Ghislaine Maxwell, and an allegation that she's notorious for withholding artists' work from release. In a deposition, Case said she made cosmetic changes to the copy allegedly drafted by Camp Sugar and included the specific language that had been requested by Jed in the voice note and Melissa via text. She wasn't presented with evidence corroborating the claims and wasn't aware of anyone at the firm who researched the accusation, according to the court document. Carol said, I think Amanda Ghost will be exposed. But will be exposed for what, though? For these accusations? Do you think she'll be exposed for these accusations? Because the reason I'm hesitant about that, Carol, is like, why, if these allegations are true, why would Brian and Jed and Melissa like distance themselves, and Rebel distance themselves from these websites and claim they didn't do these websites, yet the language used in it was very much what they found? Like, Carol says she was trying to get with that actress and is now playing it off like she didn't ask her to get in the shower. That's odd. Well, technically it's a bath. I know that there was this whole conversation around shower, but really it's the bathtub. That thing has always been odd. It's an odd thing. But it doesn't, that's different though than the accusations that's put out in that website. That's just, I think, inappropriate. If like there's questionable things around that whole thing. I do find that questionable. Carol said, if something is true, more than one person would know, is what I'm thinking. If something is true, more than one person would know, is what I'm thinking. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says maybe they didn't go through with it and gave Rebel the copy since she paid for it. Case said she made some cosmetic changes to it based off of the things that Jed had said and added certain language. So does that website contain the language that Jed Wallace communicated in those in that audio? Carol said, meaning more than Melissa and Jed or Katie would know. Yeah, if something is true, more people would know. And that's my thing, though. How are you going to say when there's evidence against you? And I understand you would, a person wouldn't necessarily admit to it, but like, why would you say there's like, we had nothing to do with that website? Like, you would have to be really technically true. And I don't want to be playing that Blake Lively stuff, you know? Carol said Rebel was trying to expose her. Exposing someone involves a level of truth. Otherwise, she would say smear. I do know what you mean, because I do know what you mean, because I remember we discussed the whole thing and the word expose, because he does say, so basically what we need to do is we need to create a path where we expose Amanda Ghost. But there's nothing in the way he speaks about it where it feels like he thinks that's actually true about her. but I will agree with you that the word expose is usually about uncovering something, revealing something. But the question is, if their desire was to expose and uncover this thing, then why do they say that that they weren't involved in the websites at all? Like when we read that website, is very on point with what was shared to say. I knew very little about her from cursory searches when we had first taken Rebel on. Kay said there was articles about her being a bit of an insidious figure in the music industry, but I didn't know much past what I could find available online. Oh, it's interesting. Okay, well, wait a minute. An insidious figure in the music industry. There were articles about her being an insidious figure. Insidious. Proceeding in a gradual, subtle way, but with very harmful effects. So she had a reputation of something, but she couldn't find certain things online. Carol said, I'm saying it's true in my opinion. Hi, Kiara. I mean, I guess my question, Carol, for you is really like, if it's true, why are Nathan, Jed, and Brian, or at least, yeah, like, or maybe it was just Brian. I don't recall. I have to reread what I read, saying that they had nothing to do with the website when there is evidence that they had something to do with the website. If their decision was noble and it was just to expose Amanda Ghost, then why not just own that? And said, yes, we did put that out, but because it's true. Because they owned the website for Justin Baldoni, right? Because that was lawsuit stuff. So why not just own this one if it's a noble reason that they're exposing Amanda Ghost? What's the importance of distancing themselves from the website? At one point, Wilson demanded her public relations team to distribute adversarial coverage of Ghost, chairwoman of Blatvinnik's AI film, as the feud worsened, according to a court filing, citing a message from the actress. You were supposed to get the negative information out about Ghost and have failed to do that, she wrote. You're supposed to get that negative information out about Ghost and have failed to do that, she wrote. That's why see, they actually have a message from Rebel. And that's why I'm saying that Rebel throwing Melissa and Brian under the bus and claiming she had nothing to do with this when she's the one complaining that it hadn't reached a level where it got out. Pam said, good point, Bocce. And Carol said, I'm saying that they knew and other people knew too. So if they didn't do the website, other people that also knew what what? Okay, hold on. I'm saying that they knew and other people knew too. So if they didn't do the website, other people that also knew what she was up to. That's in my opinion, allegedly. Okay, so are you saying because other people knew that someone else made the website? Here's the thing. The thing is, Rebel was Melissa Nathan's client, though. So who would have made it? If the language is there and she is her client, who else would have made this website? Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says, who wants to see the movie? The movie? Oh, what movie? The Deb? Or something else? Hi, AltGen X. Case in her deposition that she wasn't taken aback. Case said in her deposition that she wasn't taken aback by Wilson's instruction, explaining that that's the way these things work and that it can be somewhat of a tit for tat situation depending on the client. She added that she never spoke with the actors and that she only received directions from Wallace on the website. The case has steadily been escalating since the Deb producers Ghost, Gregor Cameron, and Vince Holden in 2024 sued Wilson for defamation after she accused them of sexual harassment and embezzlement. A countersuit from Wilson, multiple public statements from the lead actress of the movie denying claims that she was harassed, and a lawsuit from the film's production company alleging that the Pitch Perfect star blocked a distribution deal followed. An inflection point came last year when Discovery in the It Ends With Us battle unearthed communications laying the groundwork for a new defamation claim against Wilson over the alleged smear sites. No underscore longer problematic. Thank you for the Unk alert for 440 jewels. I mean, it's so fun. These things, I don't know what all of these things mean. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist. Yes, the Deb. No, I'm not interested in watching it. No. Pam said someone else burned by ghosts. Is that what you mean, Carol? And Carol, when I'm asking these questions, it's just because I'm flushing this out of my brain. I don't know what I think yet, except to say that right now, the current evidence that we have available to us, does not speak kindly towards like they're not involved. And so when they say something as staunchly as they're not involved, it's like, why would you say that if there's things that shows that you had communications around this? Like, how are you gonna? What could you possibly show that? What could you possibly show that would change that? You know. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says, why would a billionaire embezzle money from a low budget film? Is that what the embezzlement accusation was around? A billionaire? Carol said, yes, someone else could do it. The thing said other people could know, so it doesn't necessarily mean it was them. Pam said Brian did drop Rebel as a client. I wonder why. Oh, well, I mean, she threw him under the bus, but she threw him under the bus even though by that point he was no longer her lawyer anyway, but still. Going back to what Carol says, yeah, someone else could do it. The thing said other people could know, so it doesn't necessarily mean it was them. So are you? It's your suggestion that Rebel left, because I don't know how long she was a client of Tag. Left Tag and had someone else do it, but then why is she complaining to Tag about the information not going out? Or is that the proof? Is the proof that she's complaining to Tag about why is this stuff not going out? And did she end up going somewhere else so that the information would go out? I guess it depends on when this complaint. Actually, there's something to be said about that. Okay, let me think about that. But the thing is, they were willing to do one, even if they didn't end up doing it. So maybe if they're saying like we actually didn't do it, I mean, it was Camp Sugar's copy, and we don't know if they returned it back to her with Jed Wallace's additions and they went with it. I don't know. But it depends on when she complained about this, because I could make a case for that, Carol, depending on when this complaint happened. You were supposed to get the negative information out about ghosts and have failed to do that. That makes me go, okay, when did she say that? Because that might then open up, did she go to someplace else where she felt like they would get the negative information out? I mean, it's a possibility. I just need to know when that text message was. Where did they get this text message, and can we see a copy of this text messages? Because they quote it. So where is this? Do we have access to this text message to see where it was in the process? I would need all of these text messages to be put in order to the voice note and everything else, because I'm hearing what you're saying, and the only thing that can get me behind what you're saying, Carol, is this text message from her complaining about it not going out, which makes me go, did that mean that she went elsewhere to get it done? Confessions of a Jaded Optimist says, yes, she went somewhere else. So wait, how do you know that so definitively, Confessions? Is there something you read where she did go somewhere else? Pam said, yeah. So now I wonder who did do the website. I will say that I don't think these websites are the proprietary thing of Jed Wallace. I do think that this actually I would need to look back and see like what, because sometimes you only see what you're looking for. Oh, hey, Quarter Fate 2. Thank you for the cheers for 1,000 jewels. That was cute. And hello. Confessions of a Jaded Optimist. No, just speculation. Got it. Pam said, I just assumed it was Melissa and Katie. I mean, that to me, that's where my assumptions are unless I find any evidence saying otherwise. Right now, the evidence points to them. Carol said, because all Rebel had to do is align with her own attorney, but she didn't. What do you mean by that, Carol? What was she supposed, like, what do you mean? You were supposed, like, yeah, can someone tell me where I can find this text message? I need to know when she sent this, because if this was before or after or at some point, because then we would need to look at when the website was created. Because again, since she was the client, if they made any modifications to the copy and sent it back to her, she paid for that. And she could go somewhere else if she had wanted to. Potentially. But I don't know. What's her contract? Can she do that? Wouldn't that be a breach of contract if she went elsewhere to do whatever? I don't know. Pam said, but the one text saying Rebel was annoyed the info didn't go out is enough to cause doubt. It's enough for me to try to investigate when she said this and why she complained about this. It's not enough to completely erase where I'm leaning at this moment, but it does raise enough of a question of going, okay, when did she say that? Why did she say that? So could it potentially be accurate? Tag has been an ongoing business partner of Friedman and his law firm in the past decade. He's become one of the entertainment industry's most visible litigators, a regular presence in the media as a self-styled pit bull advocate for clients ranging from Kevin Spacey and Chris Cuomo to Diplo and Megyn Kelly, herself a former lawyer, who vouched for her counsel by explaining, once he's on board for you, he'll kill for you. Friedman told THR in 2024, "If you F with my client, you get what you get." In February, THR revealed how the slander sites at the center of the Ghost Wilson dispute appeared to be part of a broader online smear machine, which connects to many other recent headline-making sagas. They range from the sex trafficking case involving the socially prominent Alexander brothers, who were convicted this month in Manhattan, to the legal feud between K-pop entertainment giant Hybe and one of his former top executives. Digital forensics filed last fall in court for Jones, another alleged victim, first linked Wallace to the wider pattern. Her attorneys contend it's apparent that Nathan and Wallace have run a clandestine cottage industry of creating false smear campaigns, false smear websites, and social media accounts targeting their adversaries and those of their clients, doing so often in connection with litigation. They term this a playbook. Oh, that's weird. What happened here? Friedman had previously objected to Jones's technical data, terming it speculation presented as fact. He wasn't identified in Jones's digital forensics as a culprit, nor named him in her suit as a defendant. Yet the subject of another smear site, the actress turned activist Alexa Nicholas, sued Friedman as well as Nathan for defamation on February 5. She contended the attorney was an integral part of a team working to control unfavorable narratives. As a defendant in Nicholas's action, he so far remained silent on the matter. In THR's February investigation, Ghost lawyer Vasquez explained that any litigator's involvement in commissioning such smear sites would constitute a profound abuse of power and a betrayal of the lawyer's role in the justice system. She added, secretly engineering false or misleading narratives to intimidate, discredit, or pressure an opponent crosses the line from zealous advocacy into misconduct. When a professionally orchestrated smear campaign is weaponized in litigation, it distorts the legal process itself by polluting the fact-finding mission, influencing witnesses and the public, and attempting to win through reputational harm rather than evidence and law. Until it ends with a saga pointed at, I don't know what that is, Kliegelight at him, Wallace had been an under-the-radar Hollywood operator with a scant online footprint of his own. The digital fixer who lives outside Austin has been compared to the shadowy entertainment industry problem solver of Showtime's Ray Donovan. Friedman, his longtime associate, had previously lauded his resourcefulness. Lively's legal team has described Wallace's work in court as specializing in high-profile and high-net-worth clients, for whom he executes confidential and untraceable campaigns across various social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and X, to shape public perception of his clients and their adversaries, and to perpetuate those perceptions by, among other things, creating social media accounts with inauthentic users. Wallace has denied this, and his own attorney instead characterizes his business as being a crisis mitigation firm engaged by clients to help navigate real-life human crisis, threats, trauma, and mental health concerns, adding, it helps primarily families and individuals when they find themselves unjustly attacked, extorted, doxxed, swatted, scammed, or need help navigating through the most frightening situation. And then on March 13, 1:21 p.m., the story had been updated with a statement from Wilson's lawyer. Pam said, there has to be more shady PR people available to do this. There was an article somewhere about Blake exposing something everyone in Hollywood does secretly. Wish I could remember where, though. I think that the only people who put out these kind of websites is like Jed Wallace. If Jed Wallace does this, which, again, current evidence doesn't speak well towards Jed not doing this. And actually, let me be clear. I don't think Jed Wallace does these websites. I think he does something else, but he's probably in the know of someone who does the websites. But I don't think he's the one who does the websites himself. If you know, and maybe that's what they mean when they're like, when they say that they're not involved in it, they're not the ones that make it. Maybe that's what they mean. Maybe they're really being technically true. Well, let me read how they said it up above. But because to me, involved though, if you say you're not involved at all, that's different. Because you're involved. If you put something on that website, you're involved. Said that neither he nor Nathan, Friedman has previously said that neither he nor Nathan and Wallace were involved in the sites. I don't know what that is. That wiggly enough to say that they didn't make the websites, which I agree they didn't make the websites per se. That's not their job. Somebody else's job is that, but you can't say you're not involved. If the copy that has happened, like doesn't ends up on this website, you know what I mean? Yeah, technically true. That feels like technically true, and I don't like technically true. Because Blake Lively did a lot of technically true, contextually false stuff. Like, don't be living that life, is what I'm saying. Okay, let's see if we. So that was the Amanda Ghost one. What other ones? There was Jed Wallace and Aiden Ross. Okay, so there was an article written on Business Insider. It says, meet Jed Wallace, the mysterious crisis guru who's suing Blake Lively, specializes in seemingly insurmountable situations. This was February 6, 2025, written by Katie Warren and Jack Newsham for the Business Insider. It said a little-known Texas crisis consultant, Jed Wallace, on Tuesday sued Blake Lively for defamation, saying that she had caused him millions of dollars in reputational and emotional harm. I mean, if he's not guilty of anything he's accused of, she definitely should win a defamation case, because he really was not known as a person of anything. And she really did ruin his life if it's not true, right? And in the case of the Justin Baldoni case, it's not true. But in the cases of all the other things it exposed, we have yet to see. For nearly 8 weeks, Lively and Justin Baldoni, who directed and starred alongside her in the movie It Ends With Us, have been at war. In a lawsuit filed in late December, Lively accused Baldoni and his team of running a coordinated smear campaign against her and tapping Wallace to assist by weaponizing a digital army. Baldoni, his publicist, and Wallace have denied these allegations. In January, Baldoni sued Lively for defamation and extortion, which Lively's legal team told BI was a desperate strategy. Wallace owns a PR firm called Street Relations and has cultivated a certain mystique among his peers. On his LinkedIn page, which is no longer available, the crisis guru described himself as a hired gun with a proprietary formula for defining artists and trends. One entertainment industry executive familiar with Wallace's service told Business Insider that Wallace is the guy you hire if your kid is stuck in Bolivia or something. Interesting. The person you hire if your kid is stuck in Bolivia or something. Mary said, have any of you read anything about Tal Hanan and his army of bots? No, I've never heard of this. Wallace 54 has represented the YouTube Aiden Ross, Paramount Pictures, and Hamilton Souther, a self-described shaman and ayahuasca ceremony guide who offers live coaching services for CEOs and celebrities. In 2021, lawsuit filed by Bam Margera, the star of MTV's Again, Paramount Pictures, Margaret said that Wallace, who had no medical training or credentials, oversaw an inhumane substance abuse treatment program that included requiring Margera to take medication during daily FaceTime calls with Wallace. Wallace denied those allegations, and the suit was settled in 2022. In December, the New York Times published an explosive story detailing Lively's claims that Baldoni's team deployed a social manipulation plan to destroy her reputation. The story cited a civil rights complaint filed by Lively and thousands of pages of text messages and emails. In turn, Baldoni, his publicist, and Wallace filed a libel lawsuit against the Times, denying the allegations and accusing the paper of cherry picking and altering private messages to deliberately mislead readers. Chip Babcock, a partner in the Texas law firm Jackson Walker, who represents Wallace, told BI that Mr. Wallace has never participated in a smear campaign against Blake Lively, and to suggest otherwise would be false and defamatory. The Times has said they plan to vigorously defend against the lawsuit. In his lawsuit against Lively, Wallace said the actor sowed confusion in the press by naming him as a defendant in her civil rights complaint, but not in her lawsuit, which she filed 10 days later. His filing comes after Blake Lively filed a petition in Texas state court on January 21, requesting that Wallace be deposed about the nature. The irony that deposed about the nature of his work with Baldoni. That petition was withdrawn the same day Wallace filed his suit. All Gen X, thank you for the sunshine for 200 jewels. Mary said he's tied into the Murdoch, or maybe Greg Parker lawsuits, but he's bragged about using his bot strategy to influence, covertly interfering in 33 presidential level campaigns, claiming an 82% success rate. Miley said that's Amazonian God root. The tell ladies should have been using that stuff instead of MDMA. And Pam said, ew, but interesting, Mary. I can't wait until everything is good in Cassidy O'Connell's live. I miss the Murdaugh stuff. Okay. Brian Friedman, a Hollywood attorney representing Baldoni's team and Wallace in their lawsuit against the Time, called Wallace a do-gooder. Jed Wallace helps with real-life human crisis, trauma, mental health concerns, addiction issues, and personal safety issues, Friedman wrote in an email to BI. Seemingly insurmountable situations are Wallace's specialty. Friedman added, when good humans are fighting to save themselves, their families, or people they love, he wrote, that is when people engage Jed to assess, monitor, and help them strategize. Wallace's firm has no website. His name appears in archives of the student newspaper at Fordham University, where he played football in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and still holds the record for fifth longest punt. Wallace moved to Los Angeles in the mid-1990s, attending acting classes at the Beverly Hills Playhouse and working at a restaurant on Montana Avenue. A person who knew him at the time said. Eventually, he landed in public relations between 2004 and 2006. Multiple press releases indicate he worked for MPH PR, owned by Mike Hiles, whose clients included the advertising agency RMD Entertainment Group and Virtra Systems, which creates training simulation for law enforcement and the military. Media runs in Wallace's family. His father, Roger, who died in 2021, was a communications professor at the University of Scranton and taught classes in radio production. Wallace started street relations in Los Angeles in 2007. Over the years, he amassed a diverse client list, including Travis Allen, a California State Assembly candidate, and Dr. David Alisi, a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. Wallace has also represented a number of substance abuse recovery groups, including a now shuttered addiction recovery center in New Jersey and a nonprofit that helps mothers struggling with addiction and mental illness. He's also worked with Heather Hayes and Associates, a Georgia-based concierge service for addiction recovery. Wallace is now based in Dripping Springs, Texas. In 2020, Paramount Pictures hired Wallace to oversee a substance abuse treatment program for Margera, a stuntman who was part of the Jack franchise. In his lawsuit against Paramount, which was eventually settled on undisclosed terms, Margera said that Paramount required him to participate in the program in order to remain involved in the production of the movie Jack Forever. The lawsuit says Wallace assembled a team that included his client, Heather Hayes. Margera alleged that the treatment program was psychological torture, comparing it to Britney Spears' conservatorship. He said he was required to have daily FaceTime calls with Wallace, during which Margera had to take a cocktail of pills that left him physically and mentally drained, depressed, and a shell of his former self. At that time, Margera believed that Wallace had the final say on which medications were prescribed to him, based on Wallace's repeated statements that he was in charge of the program, per the complaint. But Wallace was not qualified to manage his treatment program. Margera said later in his lawsuit, Wallace didn't have the bachelor's degree in biology from Fordham that he claimed to have, the complaint says. In a supplemental declaration, Wallace called the suggestion that he had lied offensive and irresponsible. He told the court he dropped out of Fordham due to a family emergency and transferred to the University of Scranton. His understanding, he said, was that he had fulfilled Fordham's graduation requirements. Fordham confirmed to BI that Wallace attended between 1989 and 1993, but did not graduate. In an affidavit, Wallace said he had more than 17 years of experience working in the substance abuse and behavioral health fields, and had worked with treatment centers, first responders, and law enforcement to create treatment programs. He said he'd also worked as a crisis and wellness consultant on hundreds of cases, including for celebrities and movie studios. I'm often brought in on cases, Wallace wrote, where previous treatment and recovery attempts have failed. Lively's lawsuit says Wallace was retained by the agency group PR firm, which was founded by Melissa Nathan in 2024, and represents clients including Drake, Johnny Depp, and Hybe America, an entertainment company run by Scooter Braun. Nathan, whom Baldoni hired as a crisis publicist after negative rumors started swirling around the movie, was working alongside the director's longtime publicist, Jennifer Abel. In an August 6th text message to Abel and Baldoni's business partner, Jamie Heath, Melissa Nathan provided quotes for two unnamed digital teams that she said she'd used in the past, according to Lively's suit. The services included a website to discuss full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, as well as starting threads of theories and social fan engagement to help change narrative. Nathan wrote of the proposed social media work, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. A few days later, Nathan texted Abel a message she said was from Wallace. We are crushing it on Reddit. While some social media accounts accused Baldoni's team of using bots to amplify pro-Baldoni content, Nathan texted Baldoni that they did not do so because it would have been too obvious. Lively's lawsuit says that on August 9, the day It Ends With Us was released, and Abel texted the team a screenshot of a woman's post accusing Baldoni of exploiting her friend for his 2016 documentary, My Last Days, for which he interviewed people with terminal illnesses. According to Lively's complaint, the woman's post said that none of the documentary's proceeds benefited the subjects and that Baldoni misportrayed her friend's hometown. I'm assuming this is not true in the slightest, Abel wrote, adding, either way, we flagged to Jed and his team for more serious action on the social side. Miley said the documentary I mentioned covered all this. Bam needed the help, but as a lot of addicts, he didn't want the help. Dude was completely off the rails. Kiara said, okay, I'm back. Is this article on Jed Wallace? It is. Pam said Gottlieb is Drake's lawyer. Yes, he is. The irony of it all. And obviously, you think about Camila Vasquez was the lawyer for Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp worked with Hiltzik, who where Melissa Nathan at that time was an executive VP, and that's why they started to try to connect Melissa Nathan with Johnny Depp and all that stuff. But yeah. Kiara said, I'm behind. Is this saying that Jed acted like an addiction counselor, or am I completely lost? Yeah, that was part of his work. Hi, Shannon. You said, hey, Bocce, sorry I'm late. Can you start over? Haha, JK. Happy to catch a live. I'm glad that you were able to come to a live too, Shannon. And thank you for the $9.99. Pam said, yes, it's more focused on how he helps addicts. Kiara said, I don't know. I kind of think Jed is very sketchy. Is Jed the one that oversold his capabilities to Wayfarer too? I mean, I still don't know what Jed Wallace does. To be fair, I really don't know. I've always had a theory. I mean, this is the theory that I've had on Jed Wallace. I think that he was monitoring, but he was monitoring like things that Blake and Ryan were doing. But obviously he's monitoring social media too. We know that it's different than just regular monitoring of social media, because they had somebody in TAG monitoring social media, and they're like, we really need Jed on this, because what their person was doing within TAG is not the same thing as what Jed was doing. So sometimes I think when people think monitoring, people think it's just like looking at the sentiment or something. I think that he has something else that he does specifically, because if it was just looking at social media posts, then the person who was working with TAG would have been sufficient. But they're like, it's not the same thing. What that person was doing is not what Jed would be doing if he was monitoring. Pam said, I think he does enough good stuff outside his shady to cover it up. Wait, are you talking about Jed on that one? Miley said, Jed can be sketchy, but I watched the footage of Bam in that documentary, I'm in Recovery, and Jed's plan for him was solid. It felt restrictive because it needed to be. All right. Later that month, according to Lively's lawsuit, an employee of Nathan's firm texted Abel and Nathan, let us chat to Jed as well on this, about another negative post circulating about Baldoni. Whatever Wallace was doing, Baldoni's team seemed pleased with it. The day after It Ends With Us hit theaters, one agency group publicist texted the team that they had started to see the shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Oh, that would be a good deep dive. It was the day after It Ends With Us hit theaters, so on August 10th. I mean, the thing is, I feel like the shift towards Justin was way before August 10th. So that's interesting. What day did he say that they were killing it on Reddit as well? Kiara said, I have a question. The website on Amanda Goes, was all that info true, or did they never say? To this day, I don't think there's any proof that the accusations they were making within that website about Amanda Goes is true. So no, I until we see some hardcore evidence that's it, to me, that's a smear. Miley said, I've got a question. What do you believe Melissa meant when she said we can bury anyone? Because I don't think she meant what Blake's team is saying she meant. I genuinely believe that there's multiple ways to hear it, right? But for me, I think it meant like what I saw with uh with Blake herself when she tried to bury things. It's to hide. It was. Hold on. I gotta read the text message again. Let me read the text message in the context. I had an answer in my head, and as I was starting to talk, I was like, is that what I really think? Hold on, let me find it. That's not the right one. Miley said, I think she meant the algorithm lies. She can bury lies in the algorithm. I think so too. I'm trying to, that's what I was trying to find a way to word, but I had to see it in full context again to make my case as to why I think that's the case. And I realized that a lot of folks use certain language. Like when I read like the agents' conversations, I realized they all kind of talk the same way. So I feel like it's just industry speak in a lot of ways too. Um, like Warren had said, we're going to war, which is exactly the language that like Melissa and Jen used. You know what I mean? Carol said, in terms of PR, I think it meant headlines. Pam said, neither do I. I think by Barry, they meant put some out so many articles that the bad is farther down in a Google search. Miley said, yep, that's where I'm at, Pam. And I think that's where I'm at too, but I got to reread the text messages themselves in context. But I do think that that's where I fall on it too. My word, where is it? I wish I could find it faster. The same amount of people as likes. I love it when it evens out. Even if it's the different people that actually got me to that 51. Oh, you're looking for it for me. Thank you, Carol. Because you have all of the text messages. Sorry, folks. Sometimes when I'm on the hunt, I know that I feel bad if I don't find it quickly enough for y'all's. Yes, and I've linked all the conversations, which I'm super excited about. I'm so excited when you have that done, Carol. I'm going to be doing so many lives on that timeline. Is it in the timeline? The full context? Let me see if it's in the timeline. Maybe it is in the timeline. Let me look. Or maybe it was in the lawsuit. Actually, maybe it's in the lawsuit, the original lawsuit. Carol said I had to take a pause because Reynolds pissed me off. Mary says, take your time, Bocce. We're not going anywhere, LOL. Miley said, Reynolds pisses everyone off. Kiara said, that reminds me, did all the texts ever get uploaded to the docket that were supposed to? Oh, yeah. What happened to those text messages from Ryan Reynolds? Did we ever get those? Did we ever get those? Okay, sorry, folks. I'm trying to find this. Oh, those texts are still missing. But wouldn't those text messages, shouldn't they have come from the Wayfarer side? Because, I mean, I highly doubt Ryan was trying to put out his own text messages. How can we get them? Okay, page 98. You said page 98? I don't see it on page 98. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Wrong one. I'm looking at the wrong one. Or am I? Hold on. Oh, yeah. I was looking at the wrong one. Okay. Umami said, awooga, Lyman missing text. Miley said, Carol, I honestly think you're the hardest working person on YouTube, and we're so thankful for you. 100%, Mildly. I'm so excited for all the work that Carol has done in trying to get all those text messages together. 1072:47 has most of the context. Okay. Oh, 1072:47 has most of the context. Let's go to that one instead then. So let's see, 1072. $1072.47, you said? 47. Okay, let's read this. It's 9 pages long. So here we go. It starts off with Melissa Nathan saying, do you mind if I go offline with you, just you and Jamie? I feel we should tell him first. And I'm not sure if we should tell Justin today due to his wife's celebrations. And Jen said, you can, of course, do that, but I do think he needs to know. I'm going to confidentially send you something. He's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried. And Melissa said, of course, but you know when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. I mean, this does not look good. Like, why would it get you in a lot of trouble? You know? And then she sends over Justin's text, which says, morning, not in love with the document they sent. Not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. And she said, this is the first time I've personally gone through scenario planning with them. So I think let's let them discuss the thinking behind the document and the actual process and protocol of how they implement these things. That's the most important part of this, is how quickly they can shut things down and place. This is why I think the Barry part is that. That's the most important part of this, is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. Be honest on this call and let's give a real feedback to each point. He goes, yeah, it just feels very much like there's not much defense, and also them feeling strong, like she's going to do something, just a bit concerning what everyone had originally thought. But I do think that this is why I do think the Barry statement was around burying stories. when they said that's when Jen said that's the most important part of this is how quickly they can shut things down and play stories in your favor. Pam said, I often see pro Reynolds crap on TikTok and I go in to tag Carol to comment and straighten these people out only to find Carol has already been there and commented. Miley said, I wonder how long it took them to figure out the color-coded arrows. Carol said yes, and Jennifer Abel says the Baha'i thing will be an issue with that approach in context. And you said I have to take a break. It was taking a toll on my mood and spirit because Reynolds upsets me so much. Miley said, do we have that document, the one he doesn't feel the protection from? Yes. It's the scenario. It's the scenario document. Pam said Reynolds is the spawn of Satan himself. Oh my, what? Oh my, tell us what you really feel, Pam. Okay. Hi, Alexandra. And she says, the truth is your defense. You have done nothing wrong, and there is over a year worth of facts and paper trails and people who can go on background as your defense. This document is an overview, and I think as the situation evolved and as it has become realized, the great lengths she has gone in order to cut you out of not just the film, but promo, the premiere, etc. We need to prepare, as she will go through any great lengths with press. It's a good thing if we all prepare for the worst outcome, because then if and when it's not as bad, we are over-prepared. Notice how Blake Lively never shares that portion of the text message. She only shares this first one. She never shares the follow-up. Actually, now that I think about it, that's actually kind of wild. Let's look at how Blake Lively presented it, because that's kind of wild if you think about it. She just put it as a standalone text. She just put it as look at that. There's two text messages next to each other. One declares his innocence, and all she does is put this one, which I get it. You know, you're trying to like peddle your case, but like that's such wild taking out of context. That's the wild. It's so wild. Pam said, I'm sorry, I blame him more than Blake for all these people suffering. I mean, valid. Miley said, so I wonder what he didn't feel protected by in that document, that he did feel protected by the call. I mean, Justin can be the only person that can speak to that. I think they may have asked him that in the deposition. I would have to read what he said in the deposition around that. And Melissa says, we can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. And then Jen says, of course not. But I told him that's the point of talking through. Here's the thing. I don't think that so this statement of we can't write, we will destroy her. But here's what she says. We can't write it down to him. People were saying like, oh my word, I can't believe she wrote this down. If she thinks it shouldn't be written down, why is she writing it down in this text message to Jen Abel? She says she can't say that to him. And why do you think that she can't say that to him? What has been Justin Baldoni's stance? They've been very clear they didn't want to destroy her. So of course she's not going to say we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. That's why she said, she didn't say we can't write it down. She says we can't write it down to him because that's not what he wants. And when she says that, and here's the thing, there's never been a text message, and obviously it could have been a phone call, where he used the term he wants to, she says he wants to feel like she can be buried. He wants to feel like she can be buried. That's her assessment of the conversation. I feel like what is that something that Justin would have communicated from everything that we've seen? You know? Miley said, I don't think at any point Justin wanted her destroyed. And Melissa says that to him. I know that this is not what you want. So I think that's why they can't write that to him. Pam said the tone of texting is the same as voice calls. That's likely why he felt more reassured by voice. And Miley said, because that's not what he wanted. Kiara said, I just don't get these PR people that think it's okay to destroy people in the first place. I mean, somebody's hiring them usually to not necessarily destroy people, but to defend themselves, defend their client. Carol said, bravo, Bocce, that needs to be a short. About why she said we can't write it down to him. Is that the one you think should be a short? Pam said, all the PR people are doing the same thing, though. Destroy someone else to take the heat off their clients. It is very gross. But the only thing, though, that throws it off a little bit is like Jen said, of course not, but I told him that's the point of talking through. Kiara said, well, they end careers, which is destroy to me. Yeah. I mean, possibly. Miley said Blyan destroyed their own careers. Melissa says he has to look at it as an information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. The work is not the document. The work is the effing crisis. LOL. Okay. Now this is the stuff that doesn't look great. Imagine if a document says all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. So that gives the impression that he's asking for things. Well, though, is that what is? I don't know. I would think that that's a bad read. I mean, like that's a kind of text message that would not look great for Justin. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. I mean, in essence, it did end up in the wrong hands. It ended up in the hands of Blake. But I think it's hard to know what this means until we hear from Melissa Nathan what that means. But it doesn't read well. You know, it makes you think of things, right? But then, see, I have to always read it in context, because then Jen says something that is so in line with what we've seen out of Justin. And she says, if it's any consolation, he's like this with everything. Overthinks, stresses, high anxiety. He just needs to be educated on how this process works. So a part of me goes, part of me goes, let's look at what he actually said earlier. His concern was they weren't doing much defense. And also them feeling strong, like she's going to do something, is just a bit concerning what everyone had originally thought. See, the thing that I get thrown off of is how Justin texts, like how he speaks, not just how he texts, because how he texts is also kind of how he speaks, versus how they're talking about things. They talk about things in such different terms than Justin. But the biggest thing is he seemed to have wanted more defense. So it's not an offensive thing, a more of a defensive thing. Like if she does something, we can handle it. So Melissa says, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. I will. I'll be very tough. And also, as you know, this is twisting, turning, because we don't know their moves. But don't worry, I get it. I may just drink a half a tank of Pepto-Bismol, and I'll be ready for the call. And Jen said, yes, exactly. And maybe that's how you approach the Baha'i thing, that we had no idea of this approach and why we can't be proactive, as we have no idea what she will come out with. And Melissa says, done. Okay. Yes, exactly. And maybe that's how you approach the Baha'i thing, that we had no idea of this approach and why we can't be proactive, as we have no idea what she will come out with. What is the Baha'i approach? I think Miley said it's them saying in their own words what they think he wants. Alexander said Justin needed a publicist that was more understanding of his Baha'i faith and morals. Does Jen still represent Justin today? I believe she does. Carol said that they can't go after her, I think. Miley said, and it was confirmed by Freeman on Popcorn Planet that the main instruction everyone was given was to be nice to Blake. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense, because in essence, we can't do anything we can't do anything proactively. We have to know what they do first before we respond. Like, they can't be the agitator. They can't be the attacker. She has to attack. That's why I think you even hear Steve Sarowitz. That's why you even hear Steve Sarowitz saying that if they cross the line, then we'll do something. And we hear that frustration with the PR company about, like, why are we not doing something? I mean, and at that point, Blake was already doing things. You know what I mean? And they still weren't responding to it. And they were frustrated by that. Like, why are we not responding to what she's doing? And it's like, the directive is to stand down. Carol says, so they have to consider their beliefs while doing their approach. Mary said, yes, that they treat everyone nicely. Elsie said they have to play nice. And Miley said they can't be the victim either. They were walking a knife's edge. And Mary said, in the Baha'i faith, being mean, cruel, or unkind is strictly discouraged. The teachings require adherence to treat all people with love, courtesy, and compassion. Yeah. Okay. I think this makes a little bit more sense to me, realizing that. I think they were saying, we can't be proactive because we have no idea what she will come out with. Like, and think about that statement. We have no idea what she will come out with. Meaning, like, this person can just make up Joe Schmo stuff. I mean, not Joe Schmo, like just a smorgasbord of things. We don't know what she's gonna say. She's that unpredictable. You know what I mean? And just what you said mildly is what they said after that, right? Jen says Pepto mixed with espresso and you're good to go. And Melissa said he also cannot come across as a victim here. We are walking a very fine line. And Jen said, exactly. He can't look guilty either by shying away from this stuff. Carol said that's why she also said, I can't write that to him. And she said it multiple times. I can't say it to him. I can't write it to him. Because then Justin will be like, that's not how we do it. Echola said that Blake was saying it was a cult. Yeah. And Whitney explains it all. Hi, he said, I could not be a part of the Baha'i faith. Blake would have hated her life if I was in Justin's position. Release the Kraken. LOL. Hey, Khaleesi. Miley said, I love that we're pouring over tiny details. It's my favorite thing about you, Bocce. You get in the weeds. I do get in the weeds. Hi, the nurturing coach. Watching on replay, I don't understand why people care about Jed and these websites. He provided a service for someone just like Gottlieb provided a service for Diddy. Am I missing something? Well, I think the concern is, are these websites full of things that are not true, that were to smear people? I think that's their main concern. Elsie said she had lied so much already. Mary said, well, Justin and Jamie did speculate that she would try to claim SH, and then she did, and the PR people knew who she was / is. Echola said they didn't think Blake was going to go after the religion so bad. That's how I take it. That was JB's main concern. Mary said Justin did say he wanted to bury the bad with positive, focus on the positive. I guess the written plan didn't focus on that as much, maybe. I mean, that's the thing. Like, their scenario planning I don't think they focused enough on the positives. It was really like a way to survive. It was like a blueprint of the way to survive Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Pam said that's likely why the ladies' texts were so backstabbing. They were in a frustrating position because of having to restrain themselves due to Baha'i. Kiara said, mildly, that is probably why I love Bocce. My boss always told me I was in the weeds. LOL. Echola said, a Baha'i approach does make sense too. Khaleesi said, I think Abe mentioned someone unalived herself because of one of these Jed websites, but I'm not sure. Dang. Who was that? That's wild. Umami said, to your point, nurturing coach, Gottlieb never let the truth stand in his way. LOL. DeAndrea said they are trying to figure out how to do what they do to get the results they desire and adhere to their clients' guidelines. Miley said, I remember that, Khaleesi. It was the Alexander Brothers thing. Oh. That's awful. Alexander said, just imagine if we could have seen the communication between Blake and Ryan and between them and Leslie Sloan and Sloan's people. I mean, I still feel like there's a chance to see Sloan stuff in the Jones versus Abel case, because there had to be communication around getting these text messages, which we know came from Ashley, but Leslie got looped in at some point. Mary said they probably didn't have a lot of experience with clients that didn't want to get nasty. PR is always better when putting out salacious headline grabbing articles. The fact that she said he also cannot come across as a victim here shows that that was conversations about like what he experienced with Blake. So we know that that's got to have been a conversation. You don't say this line if you didn't know half of the things that she had already made him endure. You know what I mean? And then Melissa said exactly. And she says, ha, ha, ha. I can't believe you're still having issues. Okay. And then they start talking about her gastro issues. I'm sure Melissa Nathan is thrilled. I'm sure Melissa Nathan is thrilled that her gastro issues are part of public record. So they talk a lot about her stomach issues here. I mean, and you can tell, you know. So basically pre-call, Melissa says, this is a strategy doc, not an execution doc. This is for us to keep on hand and reference as her strategy and plan comes to light, knowing where and when to get ahead, how to operate, etc. This is also a really good text. How many times did they say that it was a strategy doc, not an execution doc? Meaning like this was in case she did any of these things, we were ready to respond. Right? We were ready to respond, but there's no guarantee she was going. They didn't know what she was going to do. So this was not an execution doc. This wasn't, we're going to do this. This was if she does these things, this is how we will respond. Hey, Kenny. Pam said, I really wonder how other directors manage Blake's disruption on sets. Well, I mean, if it's Paul Feig, he's like, I love it. I love it. Do it some more, Blake. I am a doormat you can walk all over. But no, for reals. You know, honestly, I think Justin was very open to collaboration with Blake. She just took it to a whole nother level that was not collaboration. Hi, Mamacito, 1795. All right. Okay, general agenda. This is a strategy doc, not an execution doc. This is for us to keep on hand and reference as her strategy and plan comes to light, knowing where and when to get ahead, how to operate, story coming out, need positive messaging points, third-party advocates, getting ahead of it. What does this look like? Our recommendations, throwing in a line in a broader piece about the film that positions the situation as no surprise leading up to whatever her team is planning. Briefing reporters behind the scenes to ensure balance for when her piece runs and is picked up. Discuss a more aggressive way to get ahead of this. We will also be contacted for fact checking and able to get ahead of what piece will be, helping identify next steps. What is he comfortable with? What is he comfortable with? More helpful. It in here. I don't know what that means, but again, this brings home the point that the very like quote unquote evidence that Blake Lively used were not even things that they necessarily would have done. It was so dependent on what she did. She does this, we will do this. She does this, we will do this. There was an anticipation that a story was going to come out. And they needed positive messaging points and third-party advocates. They wanted to get ahead of it. They had recommendations of what to do. They were going to throw in a line of a broader piece about the film that positions the situations as no surprise, leading to whatever her team is planning. I think they were assuming that she was going to come out with stories about the power struggle between her and Justin and try to paint him in a negative light of being a non-feminist, that he's not really a feminist because there was all this power struggle, She was going to find a way to make herself look like a good person for trying to take over that movie. I think that that's what they were planning. If you look at the scenario planning, not once did that scenario planning touch on any SH claims. Everything they were planning for was the assumption that they were going to be blamed for a power control, a power grab situation. And that's why I was always confused as to why they thought the scenario planning was negative towards Justin. Because I'm like, where in that scenario planning do you ever see them planning for her to come out with SH claims? Everything they planned on was assuming that she was going to claim that there was a power struggle, or maybe not specifically a power struggle, but that there was a friction between the two of them that revolved around that. Never did they prepare that she was going to be up here accusing him of SH to the world. You know? Miley said, and bad press on Justin could hurt the movie too. Yeah. Kiara said, what were the date of these texts? These were August 2. And Mary said, and Ryan was sowing the seeds of him being a faux feminist. And so so Jen said, thanks, waiting to be let in. Melissa said, he just said he's running late, 30 minutes. Jen said, what? So we aren't starting till 8:30? Jen, Jen, why is you didn't? How come you didn't know? You're his publicist. Who's he? Unless he is not Justin. Maybe it's somebody else that they're working with. Because who's he? And how did Jen not know that he was running 30 minutes late? Kiara said, I want Ryan held accountable for his part. Miley said the premiere was the 9th. It was there was like the movie premiere with the stars and all of them. That was on the 6th, but the theatrical release was on the 9th. So maybe the premiere was. It depends on what they mean. There was maybe the premiere is the 6th and the theatrical release is the 9th. I don't know. Oh, it was Justin Baldoni. So Melissa sends a text message from Justin, Jamie, Jen, and Ted. Okay, so Jen, did you just not see it? How did you not see the text? And you're texting Melissa right now. You're both in this text thread. Brianna said, yes, apologies for making that correction. Because he was saying, hey, it's not my first time directing. Katie updated it, I guess, maybe. Correction made here. Looking forward to running through this in greater detail shortly. And Justin says, hi, guys, I'm running behind here. Can we meet in 30 minutes? And Melissa said, I'm so sorry. I personally have a call 11:45 a.m., so 15 minutes after we jump on. I can kick off the call, and then everyone else can stay on if that's okay. And then if you want to call me later, I'm around all day just on my mobile. Okay. Jen said, LOL, I missed that. Got it. Okay. I was about to say, Jen, how did you not know? She just missed it. She's just a human being. Alexander said, also, if they release the power struggle between the two, that would bolster Blake's claim of SH because you need that power dynamic for that. Also, if they release the power struggle between the two, that would bolster Blake's claims of SH because you need that power dynamic for that. Kenny said, forgot to change the live chat. Sorry if I missed anyone saying hello. Okay. I just realized there's so much more I could talk. This is so many rabbit trails that I could go on. There's so much to unpack here. Let me finish up the Wallace article, and then I gotta go because I have a thing that I need to be at by 11. So I need to get ready for that. And it's almost 3 hours almost. Y'all, how does this time fly by so much? Alexander said, also, she was hired as an actress. Why would anyone think she should have had all this authority over Justin on set? You don't expect Anne Hathaway and Zendaya to take over Christopher Nolan's Odyssey set. Now, I can hear her say, well, this is no Odyssey, which is true. Mary said, cancel it, Bocce. I can't. Miley said, time flies when you're having fun. Kiara said, because we always are in the weeds, but I love it. Me too. Okay, so later that month, according to Lively's lawsuit, an employee of Nathan's firm texts Abel, and Nathan let us chat to Jed as well. Wait, I think I've read this. Okay, yeah. Oh, this is the thing that I wanted this is the thing that I wanted to investigate at some point on Reddit or any social media, because they were saying that once it hit theaters, so that was August 9th, it was the day after, so August 10th, they were saying that they started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. So I want to see anything that was posted. I don't know if there's a way to look for anything that was posted on August 10th. That was different, because I feel like it was already like, didn't people already question things? Maybe it's the and Ryan part, because I feel like the Blake stuff was always there, but the Ryan part maybe is the different thing. I don't know. Baldoni's team denied going on the offensive against Lively, but it's not unheard of to use social media to curry favor in the midst of controversy. Filippo Menser, the director of Indiana University's Observatory on Social Media, said social media manipulation services are everywhere in the entertainment world. Anyone can pay to have content shared, reposted, commented on, or upvoted. Once this artificial engagement kicks off, the content can go viral on its own as real people engage with it, Menzer added. It's possible to detect the existence of these campaigns, he said, but finding out who's behind them is another story. While some platforms may require a phone number to enlist their services, people can use disposable numbers, and a device's IP address can be rerouted through a VPN. Menzer said, there is no way to know who's behind them, he said. Okay, if you're the FBI, if you're some other powerful agency, there is. One Los Angeles-based crisis publicist said that the Lively Baldoni blowup is not ideal for someone like Wallace. I imagine Jed has no interest in having his name out there, the publicist said. I imagine all his work is word of mouth, and he doesn't want to be known, because if he's the guy who makes things untraceable, that's the value. Okay, that's the story, and I've got to go. Thank you for spending time with me. Have a good one. Maybe, well, I mean, there's so many rabbit trails I could go with y'all, so I don't know what I will feel like going down which rabbit trail. I didn't even get to touch half of the things I wanted to touch in regards to the whole Jed Wallace thing. So we only got to touch the Amanda Ghost thing and a little bit of background on Jed and whatnot, but it flew by. Time went by quickly. Let me see. I'll read some comments and then I'll head out. Let's see here. Mary said, okay, dude, but we know Ryan was behind it, question mark. What do you mean? It must be something I missed. Elsie says, thank you, Bocce. We love long lives. And bye, everyone that said goodbye. Mary said, I'm going to see Bryan Adams tonight, and I'm so excited. Enjoy. Miley said that BAM doc is on HBO if you're interested, Bocce. I do not have HBO, but thank you for letting me know. All right, folks. Nice spending time with y'all. Have a good one. Bye.